let's get settled in. Wow, an impressive crowd. I was just saying in a sidebar conversation, you know, if you have your voice silenced for long enough, this is what happens, okay? The people will ultimately find their way to engaging, speaking, and talking about our issues. So it is amazing to see all of you out here. I have a super loud voice, by the way, so I'll just be ratcheting that down. Tonight there'll be six scheduled speakers, okay? 3 of whom are teachers. We'll have a surprise speaker, and we'll have some of our own homegrown statisticians. These are people who keep a very watchful eye on the finances of the BCSD. So I will formally start right now. First, I'd like to welcome the elected officials who have generously agreed to spend time with us today to learn more about the leadership crisis in the Blaine County School District. With us today are Ms. Janice McGinn, I hope I pronounced that correctly, the Honorable Lieutenant Governor of Idaho. I will say that thank you. We know that we all make that trek quite often, so we know it's quite a trek. Michelle Stennett was supposed to join us. Very unfortunately, she had an emergency in the family. She is attending a funeral in California and sends her regrets. We have Ms. Muffy Davis, a well-known celebrity in our valley. And she, of course, is the honorable state representative from our district. We have Ms. Anjanine McCleary, the Honorable Blaine County Commissioner. I am told that Mr. Peter Hendricks, the Honorable Mayor of Sun Valley, is here as well. So thank you. Woohoo! And I'm also told that we have another guest politician, Idaho Representative Lance Clow. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Woo! So, to be clear, our distinguished guests will not be speaking. They're just here to listen. I may be the loudest guy ever up here. And we're thankful for that. Unfortunately, listening, that's more than our superintendent and board have done for the past several years. We should also have modest expectations of what the lieutenant governor and our reps can really do here. The school district is not their jurisdiction. Given Gwen Carroll's ironclad control over the board, real change probably will have to come at the ballot box this November. 3 seats are up. Let me introduce myself. I am Cynthia Signero. Woohoo! It's an Italian surname, Sig for swan, Nero for black. I have been a black swan, a very unexpected event. In this case, an outspoken, and yes, sometimes obnoxious, social media presence on the iCare Facebook page that helped make this event happen. If I sometimes offended you, I'm not that sorry. It got you and thousands of others to take a hard look at a local school district that is badly out of touch with students, parents, teachers, and citizens. I hardly operated alone. I won't Oscar roll through the list of all the owed thank yous, but we must recognize Ms. Debbie O'Neill. Debbie, can you stand for us? Woo! Debbie has been the squeaky wheel nonpareil. She alone carried our frustration to the elected officials who are here today. Also, thank you to Mountain Humane for letting us hold this event in this amazing new facility. Please drop a shekel or two in the donation jar at the back, or better still, come back tomorrow and adopt a pet. Why, you ask, has a balding, middle-aged man, complete with unibrow, assumed the online persona of a single mom and paralegal from Bellevue. Fear. That will be a common theme today. You'll hear a lot about how people fear the BCSD leadership, and more specifically, the demonstrably retributive Gwen Carroll Holmes. Teachers fear criticizing GCH and her policies because they'll lose their jobs or have their department budget slashed or be harassed by their bosses, the principals and vice principals, who for the most part carry GCH's water. And because of the draconian internal comms policies put in place by GCH, there is no safe way for teachers to air their concerns. Parents fear criticizing GCH because they feel their children will be treated unfairly. And in the case of high schoolers, parents and students fear they'll miss out on the many local scholarship opportunities that, you guessed it, funnel through a GCH-headed committee. It's hard to get those scholarships without her seal of approval. The board fears GCH because she has mired them in labyrinthine rules and regs that make it treacherous. That's a word that she's actually used, treacherous for them to have meaningful contact with parents, teachers, students, and citizens. You'll hear more about that tonight too. Are the fears real? Today you'll hear many painful stories of mean-spirited retribution and machinations initiated by Gwen Carroll Holmes and her Bullion Street executive team, all in the name of eliminating dissent, concentrating power, and oh so carefully crafting and controlling image. You'll also hear stories of willful neglect. A favorite GCH tactic is to do nothing. Salacious staff on student sex scandal? No rush, it'll blow over. Dozens and dozens of parents begging GCH and the board to keep Wood River High School's amazing college counselor on part-time, as she offered to do to transition to a new counselor. It falls on deaf ears. No response, never a closed loop. So often, we take the time to air things and ask for things, and they, poof, disappear. So who am I really? My real name is Will Garden Swartz. I apparently have the only family that did not choose to change their name at Ellis Island. I'm the proud father of a rising senior at WRHS, that good-looking guy at the back holding the no GCH sign. And because all of you are here, I am no longer afraid to say who I am. My son Max is no longer afraid. My wife Jenny is no longer afraid. We as a community are no longer afraid. Our own shocking experience with GCH started on November 3rd, 2017, one of the very worst days of my life. Max, a sophomore at the time, 6 inches shorter and 40 pounds lighter than the young man you see back there, was maliciously pushed from behind by a bully, a 6-foot, 200-pound football player. I arrived at the hospital to find both of Max's hands at right angles to his arms, 2 horribly broken wrists. I was sickened, heartbroken, and mad. 3 surgeries and 6 weeks of not being able to use both his hands. You can imagine that, how fun that is for a teenage boy, including for personal hygiene, ensued. His full recovery is still uncertain, and medical bills have totaled nearly $50,000. When Max awoke from his first surgery, he was crying. Not from pain. No, he's the toughest kid I know. Ever the diligent student, Max was worried about how he'd keep up with a challenging sophomore schedule that included college chemistry, college math, and AP stats. I immediately contacted the school to inquire about help gathering his homework and securing an in-home tutor. I was told to produce a letter from the doctor describing Max's predicament. I promptly did so. A week or so after the incident, the BCSD office called and said that GCH wanted to talk with me, with us. My wife was attending to Max, who was in the hospital recovering from his second surgery. So I ventured to Bullion Street alone. I wasn't exactly sure what the conversation would be about. I assumed they would avoid talk of taking responsibility, but I figured there would be expressions of sympathy and offers to help with the coming weeks of missed classes. Nope, quite the contrary. The very first word out of GCH's mouth, we can't approve any in-home tutoring for your son because the letter from your doctor is incomplete. I was gobsmacked, on my heels. Here I am, crushed, saddened, and worried for my boy, and this is her response? I said, that's bullshit. I said that. I immediately secured the letter Principal Pierce requested. You will not cuss in this building, she chided. Okay. In my career, I've served as Tyrion, you know, the Queen's Hand in Game of Thrones, to many powerful, power-tripping individuals. Ted Turner, Bill Gates, worked with a lot of them. But I must say, my first 3 minutes in the presence of GCH were, well, the power-trippiest of my life. I bent the knee a bit, and the meeting rolled on. I asked a few simple questions. May I ask what punishment the bully received? No, I cannot disclose that information. May I speak with the football coach so that he can maybe have a teaching moment with his team? I mean, you know, bullying the would-be fans seems like bad marketing. No, you may not talk with the coach. When the meeting was done, a BCS secretary kindly and very quietly informed me that if I simply had the doctor add a specific anticipated return to school date on the letter, they could approve in-home tutoring. It was that simple. As you'll hear today, GCH is a master of using legalism, nitpicky, arcane, and sometimes flat made-up rules and regs to gag her critics and gain the upper hand. When I left the Bouillon Street office, I actually was less bothered by GCH's need for power than I was by her complete lack of empathy. She never asked how my son's recovery was coming. She never inquired about the extent of his injuries. She had no real information on my son, didn't know one thing about him. She struggled to remember his name. It's almost as though Max's terrible injury might tarnish her image. That, my friends, was the true depth of her concern. My wife says we were lucky. If Max hadn't caught himself from a force great enough to break both wrists, he'd have died from a head injury. And my guess is GCH would have shown the same non-existent level of empathy. Not the behavior you'd expect from one of the highest paid public officials in Idaho. As bad as all that was, I am thankful for the clarity and boundless energy it provided. It gave birth to Cynthia the Black Swan Cignero, and it in many ways provided the energy to get all of you here. Of course, I wondered if I was alone in feeling this way. Did others see her, well, poor behavior? When the vote for the levy came up shortly thereafter, the levy, of course I would want to say levy, that's my wife's maiden name. So. When the vote for the levy came up shortly thereafter, I did some research about the district's spending. What jumps off the page is how top-heavy the district has become and how much the administration has grown, both in headcount and in compensation. By the way, you have a great packet that was passed out with all the numbers and stats that you would ever want, okay? And that was made by the redoubtable Pam Plowman. Where's Pam? Thank you, Pam. Don't mess with Pam, she will get the numbers. Yes, as a percent of total expenditures, the admins always look pretty modest. You know, in a $54 million district, okay, as percent-wise, they don't eat up that much. But it's always a bad look when the top dogs are bringing home the bacon, including three fully funded pension plans. I have never seen that before in a Fortune 100 laden career. It's always a bad look when the fat cats cry poor mouth and ask the taxpayers for more money, or in this case, they were asking permission to raid a building maintenance fund to cover general expenses. I found a group in town who shared my sentiments about this, and that's iCare. To a person, we agreed that if the diverted money were spent only on teachers and other costs directly related to the classroom, we'd support it. We asked this in editorials and ads. Crickets. In the end, we opposed the levy because we knew that a golden slice of it would be used to bolster admin salaries, fuel admin benefits, and grow the already top-heavy administration headcount, including, folks, what is now north of a $250,000 a year PR department, by far larger than any PR department for a comparably sized district. As you'll hear in other speeches and see in the packet, BCSD is always at the top in spending and ho-hum middle of the pack in academic performance. By the way, they invariably blame lower performance on changing demographics, which to me is the perfidious racism of lowered expectations. But for me, the best part of discovering iCare was this. When I asked them about GCH, they invariably said she's an unkind person who will do anything, including hurting others, to preserve and promote her image, enhance her control, and protect her well-feathered nest. I was not alone. And in fact, a pattern of pernicious behavior has now been well established for all in the Valley to see. At every turn, GCH quickly intimidates, silences, and when she can, gets rid of critics. She invariably replaces them with yes people. Her punishment of critics, as we all know, extends to students. For example, a sterling young woman who did nothing more than write a benign survey about BCSD leadership as part of an AP government assignment. Okay, enough from me. Let's talk about ground rules. As we stressed, this is a purple event. I'm red, I'm a conservative in a big blue valley, and I do confess I'm pretty excited to meet our Lieutenant Governor. But I see many of my blue friends here today. While we may disagree on budgeting, curriculum, and other such tactical matters, we all agree. And as Americans, we will always agree. It is important for everyone's voice to be heard. Everyone should feel free to express their opinion without fear of retribution. We all want to get back to a district that is vital and joyful and respectful of parents, teachers, students, and citizen taxpayers. We're tired of the fear, and we're tired of losing great educators. Will some of the testimony tonight, including mine, be emotional? Yes. As elected reps, you know well that the voice of any one constituent often tends towards shrill. We ask you, our distinguished guests, to cut through the raw emotions and look for the themes and patterns that surely speak to broken leadership. Here's how this is going to roll. We have several scheduled speakers. Then, time permitting, we'll have an open mic. Then we'll hang out and take some questions from the press. Our first speaker is Sam Linnett, the attorney representing Dakota King Hutton and Emily Thayer in their First and 14th Amendment lawsuit against Gwen Carroll Holmes and the BCSD. Sam is simply one of the most decent people you will ever meet. He doesn't know it, but my nickname for him is Jimmy Stewart, which just says how old I am. But I surely pity anyone who goes up against this guy in front of an Idaho jury. Sam, come on up. Just put that pretty card
down. All right. Thank you all for coming. This is a much larger crowd than I was expecting. So my name is Sam Linnett, and I'm an attorney, a local attorney. I represent 2 former Wood River Valley High School students in a federal civil rights lawsuit. I just drove back from Moscow, Idaho. Actually, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it here on time. But on the way, my wife and I listened to a podcast, and the story's main theme revolved around apologies. The story argued 2 things. First, that apologies are important when someone does something wrong. And the second is that they require the person making the apology to admit and declare the things that they have done wrong. This stuck with me for a couple of reasons, but mainly because the 2 women that I represent in my civil rights case, in their civil rights case against the Blaine County School District, are simply asking for an apology. When Dakota King Hutton first chose to confront the Blaine County School District, she requested a meeting and an apology from the school district in a letter that I drafted. That's all. Her issue was that the school district had deleted an opinion poll that she had made as part of an AP government class. She constructed it in accordance with the homework assignment, and she sent it out to 30 random individuals. In a written response, the school district declined to meet with me and Dakota, and instead explained that Dakota's speech was appropriately censored because the opinion poll was a professional evaluation of the superintendent. The school district then suggested that if Dakota was unsatisfied with their response, that she could always give public comment. And so we did. We did despite the suggestion to give public comment felt like an attempt to ignore our concerns and not address them. But it was either give public comment, I had already written 2 letters to the school district, or it was walk away and let the school district continue to silence student-free speech. At the meeting, I was not allowed to have a 2-way discussion with the Board of Trustees. I was given 2 minutes to talk on behalf of Dakota, and then nothing. I never received a response from the trustees or the superintendent, and neither did Dakota. But I was contacted by Emily Thayer. Emily was inspired by Dakota's actions in confronting the school district, and she had a similar story. In Emily's senior year of high school, she wrote a report to the Board of Trustees as part of her duties as a student board representative. Part of the things she wrote in that report were concerns about the change in the graduation date. She was respectful and professional, and it was a very well-written report. Unfortunately, that section of her report about the change in the graduation date was never given to the Board of Trustees. Instead, it was censored and redacted by the superintendent before it reached the Board of Trustees. So even now, after filing a lawsuit against the district, there's still no indication that Emily or Dakota is going to receive an apology. It's discouraging and bewildering that our current school district leaders are unwilling to apologize to 2 former students of their own district for obvious and simple violations of their constitutional rights. In both instances, the school district asked Emily and Dakota to say something through their schoolwork, to speak in one form or another. And when the girls did speak, administrators declared that the girls had done so inappropriately. And so now we're here in this room talking about how the leadership of the school district is failing its students and its community. My clients' issues are not the only problems with the district's leadership. Their individual problems represent a greater pattern of undemocratic, authoritarian governance of our school district. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here with multiple individuals all talking about the same general theme. Whenever I speak with Dakota and Emily, they make a point to remind me of the main purpose of our lawsuit. And that purpose is this: that the public needs to know what is happening in their schools, that we cannot ignore when an institution entrusted with educating students to live in our democracy violate those same students' rights. I commend Dakota and Emily for standing up for their rights as young adults. They were still in high school when I first got in contact with them. I hope we will continue to hold the school district accountable. I wish for reconciliation and rehabilitation of soured relationships in our community between those in charge of our school district and those who depend upon it. And I thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak here. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. If you want to help the girls cover some of their legal costs, a bunch of us in town do help support it. If you want to help with that, there's a GoFundMe page right here. You can point your phone at that QR code and it'll take you right there. And it will promptly transfer your entire bank account. No, it won't. It really won't. So that's a great way to show your support for the girls. Our second speaker is a surprise. It is BCSD Board Chairman Rob Clayton. While I've often disagreed with the chairman, I deeply admire his desire to address us. And while I really don't know what he's going to say, I can't wait to hear it. Thank you, Chairman Clayton. Yeah, you got to put that down pretty fast. You have a good voice.
Okay. Hello. I'm Rob Clayton, chairman of the Blaine County School District Board of Trustees. I'm actually a little nervous too, so I have to say. I want to state for the record that I'm here representing myself on behalf of myself. My words are not representative of either the BCSD or my fellow trustees. I represent no party, no special interest group, or any other individual. As said, this is a nonpartisan purple event today. I'd like to thank the panel of elected officials for their presence here today. It's so interesting for me to be on this side of the public comment table. Appreciate that. My first intention is to apologize for my poor job of leadership. Last Wednesday night, I was out for dinner. It's a rare occurrence for me. My waiter was a woman who had been through the Blaine County School District system. Due to my enigmatic nature, she didn't know who I was or what my role was with the school district. She openly shared her experiences during her time with the district as a student and her impressions of the ongoing current events within the system. At best, I was disheartened by her many sad stories. Out of respect for her privacy, I won't go into detail, but her observations were consistent with the pervasive attitude within this community regarding how the district is currently being managed. I am one of those managers. As I listened to her speak and share her experiences, I questioned how well I had served her during her time with the Blaine County School District. It made me wonder how many others share her stories. This conversation validated in many ways some of the current concerns I have developed. The biggest concern this highlighted for me is that the communication is really restricted to me as a board member. It feels like I'm kept in a shroud. Since I've started to peek out from under the shroud and engage in community conversation, I really wonder how much information I have missed out on. For me to do the best job I can for the people of this community, I need to be regularly informed on all aspects of any significant issues facing this district. As your representative, this shortfall is solely on me. Moving forward, it will be my intention to request the information and facts necessary for me to do a better job for you. Our youth are the most significant resources Valley has to offer. It's not the snow or the symphonies. Our children are the future of this valley and the future of this community. They should be guaranteed the best care, instruction, and modeling. I'm sorry for my inadequate performance in governance and oversight of the institution responsible for providing that due service. My second intention is to deliver the message to the community that I'm here to serve you. I hear the unhappiness and the discontent. I recently had a conversation about what I perceived as apathy within the community in regards to education. My observation was that few people participate, few people come to meetings, few people are actively involved. My friend, who's a pretty sharp guy, says to me, "It's not apathy we feel, it's a sense of hopelessness. It's the sense that whatever we do, we're not going to be heard. It's a feeling nothing will change." That really struck me. This was a couple months ago. I want all of you to have hope. I want all of you to know that you will be heard. I want all of you to know that you will be advocated for. I want you to understand that I will hear you, will support you, and will work to provide you with the best possible outcomes. Currently, we are not experiencing the best outcomes possible. We need to do better. I want to do better, and I want to see better outcomes. We need to move forward as a team. As I was thinking about speaking at today's meeting, my initial reaction was, what will the repercussions be? I thought, oh, if I get in front of this gathering or if I'm associated with one group or another, I'm going to get myself in trouble. I got past that fear real quick, after kicking myself for allowing myself to think that way. Obviously, I'm standing here. I think the feeling I experienced is pervasive throughout this community. I want to say to you that there is someone in authority who acknowledges that these fears exist. You have a leader who wants to hear about your fears. You have a leader who wants to help you overcome your fear. I want to do the right thing. Strength is found in collaboration. Hearing your voices will overcome hopelessness, but continued silence will drive the status quo. If you want to see change in the status quo, please reach out. You need to be heard. There is power in your activism. There is power in numbers. Encourage your family, friends, and acquaintances to do the same. Share your feelings and concerns with those who hold office. Demand the attention that the current situation deserves. And please remember that I work for you. Thank you.
That, my friends, is what courage looks like, right there. I imagine that Chairman Clayton is going to face a bunch of flack from his fellow board members who are or haven't yet seen the light. So we need to support Chairman Clayton in the same way that he's reached out to us. We need to support him. At that next school board meeting, we need to show up and not let him get ramrodded out, as we know happened to Liz Corker, okay? So that's not gonna happen on our watch. We've got each other's backs here. Okay, I wanna grab my notes here. Our next speaker is Ms. Melanie Schrader. Ms. Schrader is an active and deeply admired BCSD teacher. That means she's there right now. So she is putting herself out there as well. Among other things, Ms. Schrader heads GATE, the Gifted and Talented program at the middle school. Many active teachers contacted us with their stories and concerns. Many. Some wrote letters, and we have a packet of letters for the elected officials. But only one active teacher has agreed to speak today. I give you Melanie Schrader.
I think we're all familiar with the adage, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power absolutely corrupts, by British Lord Antony. Less familiar from him is absolute power demoralizes. As he introduced me, I'm Melanie Schrader, and I'm a teacher at the middle school. I have 2 children, a junior and an 8th grader, who have gone through the middle school and are at the high school. And I chose to speak today because I'm tired of being silent. I'm here to try to show you the corruption of morality, the rise of a despotic and uncontrolled leadership, and the great demoralization that I've watched occur among my fellow teachers and myself as a consequence of the leadership of Dr. Glenn Carroll Holmes and her regime. The relevancy of this, I think as stakeholders in our public education system, is obvious. We care about our kids. We care about carrying on a democracy. We care about empowering, inspiring, and engaging those children. And we want a system of education where we have a voice and they have a voice. For our government leaders that have graciously joined us today, the relevancy of this for you is that Idaho law has allowed policies and procedures to be adopted by the Blaine County Board of Education that could be adopted in any school district in the state of Idaho that allows leaders to be corrupt and protect themselves in their corruption. And that is a huge problem. I would like to talk about my experiences as a teacher and as an individual who co-filed a grievance against Dr. Glenn Carroll Holmes and the experiences that I've been through. First, corrupt morality. Dr. Holmes, whether power corrupts or she was corrupt before she came here is not the argument. She is corrupt and she lies. She stated several years ago to the community and to the public that administration, after formation of an administrative union was formed, did not receive a raise. Salaries are public record. I myself went into the public record put forward by the Blaine County School District website, and I looked at the salaries of all the administrators before that raise that did not happen when it took place, and I looked at it the next year, and lo and behold, there were a lot of raises. Some of them $13,000 more than the year before. There were a lot of raises. That's a flat outright lie that anyone can fact check themselves because it's on the Blaine County School District website. Before the creation of the STEAM school at Ernest Hemingway, I was a board liaison teacher. She stated in one of those meetings, the creation of the STEAM school will not cost the district any extra money. That is a lie. Okay? This year, they're adding a half-time administrative position and a half-time counselor position for the STEAM school. That represents increased costs. They're expanding the campus of the STEAM school because they don't have room for everybody there. I don't know how much that will cost, but I knew that next year at Woodriver Middle School we will have empty classes because we have 6 positions that were eliminated and are not being replaced. And they spent millions to renovate and add to the middle school, and now we will have classrooms sitting empty while the STEAM school has millions spent on it to be expanded. Email conversations I have been lied to by Glengarrow Holmes or her members of her regime doing her bidding. I asked with the person I co-authored a grievance for the board to reconsider a no trespass order. And we asked them for an apology because 95% of allegations that were put forward against someone were shown by us to be false. She stated in response to that the board had decided on this specific decision. In talking to 2 board members on separate occasions, neither board member had ever been presented with that. The decision never went to them, yet I was told by her it had been. She drives other people to lie for her. I've been told firsthand by someone who has been instructed of that. She seems to pick and choose who she will stand up for and who she will retaliate against. And if you are in her inner circle, you are protected even when you do things. She leads others to delete emails that have evidence against her. I personally have just discovered in the last week that emails I had saved that I wrote to my board representative, to her, to Amanda LaChance, requesting my grievance be looked at and understanding the processes in my personal email. They're all gone. And there's a theme of disappearing emails from lots of people I continue to hear. Furthermore, there's evidence of her targeting individuals and leading or instructing people to lead biased investigations while other things are totally dropped. Glengarrow Holmes and her leadership is corrupt. She has worked slowly since she has become a superintendent to build a despotic system of governance in which she is virtually untouchable. The first year she came in, there was a 360 evaluation in which parents, teachers, students fill out a form to evaluate her. I remember doing that for Jim Lewis. I remember doing that for Lonnie Barber. I did that for her her first year. Nobody had a real great feel for her at the time in her leadership. We did by the second year, and that has disappeared and it's gone. It has never come back. She has a very tight hold on the board, and as you've heard earlier, channels some of the information that reaches them and what does not. In meeting with some board members, or trying to, they were willing to meet with me, and then later on, the day of the meeting, had been instructed not to meet with me. They're unwilling to say who instructed them of that. but she does control board members and what they hear. She removes information from vital reports. She takes board members who at first come in and challenge the board's position and offer some defiance, and then we slowly see that behavior change and notice around town on a weekly basis is that Gwen Carroll Holmes is going to lunch with them every week. She creates policies that protect her and other administration. Did you know that all administrative grievances and complaints must go through her even if they are against her? So any grievance against her ends up on her desk. She gets to decide, is it investigated? How is it resolved? Will it go on to the board? You can guess how many have made it onto the board. That is a problem. Don't think I need to explain why. Several years ago, she headed up a committee. It was a grading task force. She had an agenda. She wanted to bring in standards-based grading. A group of teachers piloted a standards-based grading grade book. I usually put myself out there and I'm willing to pioneer a lot of things. I looked at that one and I'm like, you know, I'm going to step back from that. And I was very glad after I checked in with lots of teachers who were, and they said it was a nightmare. From a parenting aspect, looking at the grades of my children was a nightmare to try to make any sense of the grade book. And this is someone who uses grade books all the time. Now, about a month and a half ago, at a leadership committee meeting, we were told, oh, by the way, standards-based grading is being put into policy. So the teachers on the committee had kind of fought against it. They didn't see an issue. We already are grading our students based on standards, so why do we need to change the entire grading system to not have letter grades and have all this other things? It's very, very tedious. So we were told, and I quote, the grading task force didn't go the way Dr. Holmes wanted it to, so now she's just writing standards-based grading into policy. You guys can be on a committee to decide what that ends up looking like. To my knowledge, the policy has not yet been approved. My prediction is that as soon as summer hits and we scatter, it will be presented to the board. Gwen Carroll Holmes, in helping the democratic process go along, has aided in the selection of 3 of the 5 current board members, because board members resign before their term is up, and as an electorate, we don't get to elect our representatives. They're interviewed by the board and her, and they get to pick who they want to fill that role. So for how many years have we not been able to elect someone? That's also a problem. She has personally put herself in charge of every policy and finance committee the district has seen since she has gone into the superintendency role. Therefore, she can control every policy that gets put into the books, have her hands on everything, and convince the board to do whatever she wants them to do that way. She has slowly created a system in which she is untouchable and can do whatever she wants. Finally, there has been plummeting teacher morale. I moved to the Valley in 2007. It was a haven for teachers. They loved their jobs. They felt appreciated. It was like the place in the world, or at least the United States, where people felt like they were paid worth what they were as teachers. And people went above and beyond the call of duty in their jobs because we felt valued and appreciated. And with Jim Lewis's resignation and Lonnie Barber coming in, I think if you were involved in teaching, you knew morale started to drop. More was weren't a part of bringing in were being asked of us that were very tedious. We did not feel like we were listened to. When Gwen Carroll came in, we were cautious. I'd say we were cautious and overworked. When we talked to people about how they were doing, everybody was trying to survive, and morale was very low. The second year, I think most of us felt the same. We had the hope of having some voice because she brought in some amazing speakers. Sir Ken Robinson, talking about creativity. I can't remember everything. I just remember the speakers she brought in were very, very inspiring. But the big takeaway for us as teachers was we need to empower, inspire, and challenge our kids to be creative and solve problems, but we don't get to do that. We never get to have a challenge that teachers are faced and actually be treated like professionals to be able to solve it. Our voice has been taken away. We feel like our professional opinions are not listened to. And I think most teachers feel unhappy with leadership and unappreciated and happy places when we close the door to our classroom and we're there with our students. And we do as much as we can to stay in that happy place and not leave it, because otherwise it's very demoralizing. There's a lack of trust. Our voices are ignored. We're not part of a system. Promises about the calendar, if this calendar was adopted, we'd get this. That didn't happen. There is a fear to speak out. I haven't said anything for 4 years. And I'm a leadership teacher. And I'm a fighter. And now I'm afraid that my son will not get scholarships. I didn't know when Carol Holmes signs off on so many of them. I don't know what the retaliation will be, but I was willing to face it because I feel safer just being out in the public, but now I'm worried for my son, who will be a senior next year. People are afraid. There's unfair treatment and application of staffing formulas across schools. At least it seems like that, but no one will give an explanation to address why, when STEAM school has 25 kids going to it, they get 2.5 teachers, and we're being cut that many at the middle school, and we're not actually losing students. So what started in 2007 when I moved here as a model district is now kind of a nightmare district. There's bullying and there's harassment from our leadership. A lot of people feel pushed out or forced to resign. And we harbor an administrator who has favorites that can do no wrong and are untouchable, and the people who speak out are faced with retaliation. For a couple of years now, some of my friends and I have been planning our exit strategy. Things don't get any better. I've never done that before. The corruption, the lack of integrity with the community, with teachers, with students, the bullying, the control of the board, the district policies that protect her and have led to a demoralized staff of teachers who are overwhelmingly afraid to speak out. That's why I came to talk to you tonight, so you're aware of those situations. Locally, we need to elect new board members that are not willing to stand up for us and demand more of our board. And we need to speak up and not stop speaking up. For our state legislator, I hope that they can work to pass laws that prevent boards from adopting policies and practices that can empower corruption and totalitarianism. And hopefully we can replace our superintendent and any other administration that's been involved with perpetuating and carrying out her amoral ways. Another truism we are familiar with is the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. So let's not leave here tonight and do nothing.
Wow. It's getting to be like Braveheart up here. Except Mel Gibson isn't funny anymore either, so anyway. Our next speaker is a nationally recognized music teacher, or was until a couple of weeks ago. She was the head of the orchestra program at Wood River Middle School and Wood River High School, Ms. Rebecca Martin. Woo! We're talking a beloved teacher at the high school. These kids, they love her, okay? I will point out, ironically, GCH's advertorial in the Mountain Express last week gushed about her love for the arts, and yet we let go of a beloved, super talented middle school and high school orchestra leader. All right, Ms. Martin, Rebecca Martin, come on up. Put this pretty low, so you'll hear her. And if it sounds like it, just low.
Okay.
Thank you.
Whew. I said I was not going to get emotional because I want to be really tough, but I'm a music teacher. I can't. And this is my family. So, thank you for allowing me to address you tonight. My name is Rebecca Martin, and I've been the orchestra director. I said I wasn't going to do this. I'm sorry, I want to be super tough because I need to get through this. Okay, okay. I'm the orchestra director for the Wood River Middle School and Wood River High School for 9 years. My husband, Kelly Martin, served as the communications specialist for the Blaine County School District for 5 years before he resigned. It was not an easy decision for my husband and I to leave the district and the Wood River Valley because we have built relationships with many wonderful people here and still feel very connected to the community. Since September 7th of 2017, we have been going through the proper policies and procedures to address bullying, intimidation, retaliation, and harassment by my husband's former supervisor, Heather Crocker, who is the Director of Communications for the Blaine County School District. Kelly and I filed 3 separate reports, and a 4th independent report was filed after Kelly's resignation. I'm sure you've seen it in the paper. All reports were dismissed as trivial. I would like to quickly address each incident so that you may become aware of the negligence and the unprofessionalism that ultimately made us feel that we could no longer tolerate how we were being treated. In September of 2017, Kelly was tasked with researching and heading accessibility, which was outside of his essential job functions and to which he had no specialized training. After seeking direction and clarification, he was ignored multiple times and requested a meeting with Shannon Mazza, HR Director, and Heather Crocker as his supervisor. That did not occur until 6 months later, on March 20th, 2018. In this meeting, his job was threatened. Kelly Martin then joined the Blaine County Education Association and requested a second meeting with representation. The second meeting with HR occurred on April 4th, 2018, after which Heather Crocker, Director of Communications, took offense to Kelly joining the union and bringing representation to the meeting. Here are just a few examples of Heather Crocker's retaliatory behaviors since that March 20th, 2018 meeting. Kelly Martin is tasked in September with accessibility, but is left out of all related meetings and discussions, setting him up for failure. Kelly Martin, I know what you're thinking. He's just the communications specialist, and his director, whatever. Kelly Martin receives his first negative job review after 4 years of glowing reviews. Kelly Martin is denied vacation leave the same day as his negative review, inconsistent to how he's been treated in the past and how others in the office are treated. Kelly Martin's lunches start being tracked, and derogatory comments are being made to him about him to his coworkers. Heather Crocker wants Kelly Martin to change my title on the blankschools.org website from orchestra director to teacher because I'm not really a director. Heather Crocker begins changing processes and procedures for Points of Pride videos that are presented at monthly board meetings without communicating to Kelly Martin, and again sets him up for failure. Kelly Martin applies for an open technology department position, to which Heather Crocker blocks, explaining in an email that he should have taken vacation leave for the interview and that he is better suited for communications. Heather Crocker excludes the music department from the BCSD weekly updates and attempts to make me look unprofessional to my colleagues regarding the NAM award that we have won for 6 years in a row. Again, these are just a few examples of the 12 pages of documented ongoing harassment that we have endured for 2 years. What we found most concerning is the retaliation then progressed to Kelly's coworkers after they treated him to a birthday lunch in October of 2018. All noticed that their working relationship with Heather Crocker was compromised in some way. The director of communications interactions were suddenly curt, and she seemed to avoid interaction with them. This went on for 3 months. This behavior led Kelly Martin to file a grievance, which immediately upon receival, Heather Crocker took to Dr. Gwen Carroll Holmes, superintendent of schools, and proceeded to discuss the details of the grievance. I would like to read a section of Kelly Martin's appeal to the first step of the grievance, and I quote, "I am also concerned that the superintendent has been biased by the director of communications based on the fact that all parties involved received an email from HR Director Shannon Mazza with a forwarded email from Dr. Holmes stating, quote from Holmes, Fritz Peters will act as the HR designee in regards to Kelly's grievance with Heather. You are named as a witness, so cannot serve as the HR administrator. End quote from Dr. Holmes. Re-quote from Kelly. Sorry if this is confusing. I believe this is evidence that the superintendent has either read the grievance filed against the director of communications or the director of communications read the superintendent the grievance. If this is the case, I request that the grievance process move forward to a panel or a superintendent designee continues on in place of the superintendent. If the HR director was removed because she has been named as a witness, then I am requesting that the superintendent be removed as the director of communications has compromised her. End quote. This request was denied and proceeded to the second step of the grievance, wherein Dr. Holmes did not hear his concerns and in her response dismissed them as professional acts from Ms. Crocker. After separately filing the bullying, intimidation, and harassment report, the investigation was handled by one person, Superintendent Gwen Carroll Holmes. She treated the accusations as trivial, and as she asked every witness irrelevant questions to the report, she acted as if asking these questions was a ridiculous waste of time, sighing and rolling her eyes. When witnesses tried to respond to what they had witnessed in regards to Ms. Crocker's behavior, she would not allow them to continue. When Kelly Martin requested the questions and the notes to the investigation, he asked her to include the dates and times of the steps taken, all notes, records, and recordings. The email he received from Dr. Holmes stated that she had asked each witness 5 questions to which the responses were no. She also informed him that she had pondered on it and slept on it over spring break. She then chose to lump her response to the bullying investigation into her response of the grievance. She produced no written or recorded notes other than the questions she asked and the response of no to each question. This prompted an independent investigation, however, During executive session with the School Board of Trustees, the independent investigation was again treated as trivial and dismissed. I was surprised to see that in the Weekly Sun, Dr. Holmes asked the school district's attorney to review the investigation. Again, no notes were produced or taken, so we find it interesting that the school district attorney was asked to review something that does not exist. Reviewing a poorly implemented investigation only proves that Kelly Martin's accusations were shut down due to the people who administered it and had power over it. Upon Kelly Martin's resignation, Heather Crocker's retaliatory behavior has not ceased, but continues to become pervasive and persistent. She continues to spread falsehoods, claiming that Kelly Martin is a disgruntled employee who just wanted a raise. She continues, she needs to talk about raises. Sorry, that was really rude. She continues to send harassing emails to my coworkers and my principals, and she cornered my oldest daughter at a dance recital. Her behavior fosters a climate of fear, intimidation, passive aggression, power and control, and bullying that creates a hostile work environment that we could no longer tolerate. I filed my own grievance on April 22nd, 2019, and it was unopened and refused by both Heather Crocker, step 1 of the grievance, and Dr. Gwen Carroll Holmes, step 2 of the grievance. I informed the board that Ms. Crocker and Dr. Holmes had refused my grievance, to which I had 3 condescending emails. One from Dr. Holmes stating, and I quote, "While this might not be the process you think it is best, it is in the agreement," end quote. I am assuming she is referring to the master-teacher agreement. However, nowhere in the agreement does it say that the grieved is allowed to refuse the grievance. I then received a curt email from Trustee Ellen Mendeville where she tells me, and I quote, "Stop emailing the board in this matter. It is inappropriate and tiresome," end quote. I then receive another email from Trustee Mandeville apologizing for her curt tone, but then, I quote, "I, Ellen Mandeville, am frustrated that the board is receiving this information at this time," or I am frustrated that I, Ellen Mandeville, am frustrated that the board receiving this information at this time may have subverted and tainted the process, end quote. The process was already tainted by refusing the grievance. Again, the district has policies in place, but the policies are being abused by the people in power. Also, the policies do not address when an employee is grieving a member of the district office administration. Level 1 of the grievance for teachers is for their principal to respond, even if the principal is unaware of the situation and is not privy to any details. This needs to be addressed. Also, the grievance process is controlled by one person, the superintendent. The superintendent has direct access to the board, and in the Blaine County School District, Dr. Gwen Carroll Holmes has convinced all trustees not to communicate with the constituents they represent. Our emotional well-being, including our psyche, has been affected daily over the last 2 years due to the behavior exhibited by the people in charge. This solution could have been simple. In Kelly Martin's grievance, his solution was to be transferred to the technology department. Again, I'm quoting from my husband's appeal to step 1 of the grievance process, and I quote, "I have grave concerns that the Director of Communications has violated the grievance process and has biased the Director of Technology, Teresa McGoffin, and the Superintendent. In the informal meeting, the Director of Communications stated that she had already spoken with the Director of Technology, Teresa McGoffin. The Director of Communications relayed that Teresa said she was not in a position to supervise me. On the day of our informal meeting, March 7th, the Director of Technology phoned the HR Director, Shannon Mazza, and stated that she had told the Director of Communications that it was Heather Crocker's decision to transfer me. A resolution could have been achieved at the time if the Director of Communications was truly seeking a resolution," end quote. really hate that I'm crying, but I know many of you don't know my husband, but if you did, you would understand that this is so beyond his character. Number one, he doesn't like conflict. He is a people pleaser. He is a hard worker. He built the website from scratch. He maintained the website. He did all the Points of Pride videos. He did all of that, but he had to share his work with his supervisor, who did none of it. As more people are privy to this conversation and our story, the more I am afraid that people in power in this district will negatively affect our new jobs in Boise. Our family has been through 2 years of pettiness, unprofessionalism, and disrespect. It is stressful enough that we have to relocate on top of continued retaliation. I am doing this because I know this is the only chance we have to tell our side of the story, as it has been one-sided, manipulated, and misconstrued. Dr. Gwen Carroll Holmes and the current Board of Trustees will eventually be replaced, but the people that remain in power who have willingly allowed this climate to perpetuate will remain, and thus the problem will not go away. This is a much deeper issue. I am a highly educated, highly qualified teacher with 15 years of experience, but I am stepping away from the teacher profession. Even though it was our choice to resign and not to tolerate this behavior any longer, I still went through the proper policies and was completely and utterly ignored. I am worried about the future of the staff and the students in this district. There is an apparent lack of integrity and honesty that will continue if the people in this community do not take back their district and hold those involved accountable for their actions. I very much appreciate that you are here tonight and are willing to listen to our story and others. Thank you.
A district that will chase away talent like that it's insane what's happening. And so, particularly the fact that we're losing her as an educator, that's a huge loss for our community, for our children, for children everywhere, right? So, again, I would ask, what she said is exactly right, though. The ultimate power is ours. Like, we have to affect this change. We have to do that. And we can't let retaliation happen. Ms. Schrader, who's still employed at the BCSD for the meantime, we're going to be watching. I promise that. Our final teacher speaker is Ms. Robin Nagy. She was recently dismissed from her role as the behavior academic social education teacher, that's essentially special ed as I understand it, for grades K through 5 at Haley Elementary School. Robin, come on up.
I have been told that I have the most difficult teaching job in the district, working with the most difficult population of students. Honestly, I love being the base teacher, and I feel that I have the best job, wouldn't do another job. And I have to say, losing this job has been the most difficult thing that I've had experienced in my life. Having to say that I had the best job is the worst thing for me to say. I was informed on April 22nd, 2019 that my contract would not be renewed for next year. Principal Thad Biggers and Special Services Director Debbie Gutnick, and ultimately signed off by Dr. Holmes, a woman doesn't even know my name and has met me one time, has no idea what my job performance is, decided to take my position from me, stating, quote, "Your certified staff evaluation demonstrated unsatisfactory performance in multiple components of the planning and preparation, classroom environment, and instructional and professional responsibility domains of the Danielson model. My job performance was so poor according to this evaluation, that I was not even given the option for probation. Yet not once was I reprimanded, counseled, or even spoken to about concerns that I was not performing up to their standards or that I had any sort of deficiency. 2 years prior, my same evaluation, I scored almost a near perfect. I am by no means perfect, and I have been the first to admit my mistakes and to ask for help. But my end of the year evaluation was filled with slanderous, hateful, and outright lies that although I can refute with verifiable proof, I am not given the option to present my case, nor do they need to provide proof of such allegations. My evaluation and subsequent loss of my job comes after continued months of harassment from Mr. Biggers, in which I recently filed a grievance on, and coincidentally had to serve to Mr. Biggers, and was obviously denied. And after a recent 3-year special education reevaluation meeting in which I stood up for a guardian, put the needs of my student first, and challenged Mr. Biggers and Ms. Gutnick on their stance of supposedly putting the needs of the students above the budget. The current administration at BCSD does not put the needs of their students first, nor do they want teachers to challenge them or the system that they have created. I stood up for myself and for my students, and it cost me my job. I now must relocate as I am not hireable in this district. And if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't do it differently. My students are the most misunderstood, least respected, and have the highest needs in the district. My role as their teacher is about positive change, positive improvement, and positive difference. My labor may have been undesired, unnoticed, and unrewarded by the administration. However, it was not by my students and their parents. That is no simple task and has been my greatest reward and accomplishment. I will never regret fighting for them and fighting for what is right. I only regret that they have lost a good teacher and advocate. In a district where there's a zero tolerance policy on bullying, the administration does not hold themselves to the standard and does not foster a good example. I hope things change before more people suffer the same fate as myself. And I'm very sad to have to leave the district after only 2 years. Thank you all.
Thank you, Robin. And thank you for what you were able to provide, and we're sorry to lose you. And Rebecca Martin. And we are not losing Ms. Schrader. No, we are not. No. Finally, of the scheduled speakers, I give you Miss Barbara Browning. She's simply one of the smartest, most persistent local operatives I've ever had the pleasure to work with. And she's a great writer, which gets me right here. If you want to know what's going on at the BCSD, ask Barbara. So here you go. Come on up. And put that down. Well, your voice isn't too powerful. Okay. Leave that. Oh, that's yours. Sorry.
Is that working? No?
No, you sound good to me.
Okay.
She sound okay?
After all of this, I'm tossing this. The only thing I need to tell you is that this is a document called a vote of no confidence. That's an official title of something that is used nationally for citizens to present to the governing body of anything, school district in this case. So we who have created this document are requesting a vote of no confidence from our school board. There is growing evidence that Dr. Holmes is completely disconnected from parents, teachers, staff, and community members. You've just heard numerous examples. I have them here, but they don't need to be repeated. From the beginning, Superintendent Holmes has consistently acted to gather ever-increasing personal power over the Board of Trustees, over the taxpayers who fund her salary, and over the teachers who are the lifeblood of this once thriving district. She has established the Holmes culture of secrecy and control. She has not improved overall educational outcomes. She spends money like crazy. For the past 3 years, she has averaged over $70,000 a year for legal fees. Why? And why has the board allowed it? We don't know. No one will answer any questions. Under her contract, the superintendent can be terminated for cause for material financial mismanagement of the district, which I just gave you an example of, or a material violation of any provision of the Idaho Code of Ethics for professional educators. Among other things, we believe she has wasted large amounts of money, and we allege she has violated ethical standards. Consequently, we do believe she can be terminated for cause, which means no severance pay. Okay. This no confidence petition is available online. Please sign it. We're going to download, print the names, present it to the board. One final paragraph. This community feels Dr. Holmes is unworthy of her leadership role. The culture of a school district emanates from its leadership. Right now, the culture is we, or us, which is leadership, including her captive board of trustees and her battalion of principals, versus them, or they, the teachers, students, parents, and citizens and taxpayers. Right now, the culture is one of fear. Cross Gwen Carroll and lose your job. Cross Gwen Carroll and say goodbye to your local student scholarship. For the sake of students, teachers, parents, employees, and the entire Blaine County community, we implore our school board to remove this superintendent for cause now.
Thank you. That is exactly what we have to do. And again, that QR code right here and a link right here, you can cast your vote of no confidence. We will supply those to the BCSD Board of Trustees, and then it's in their hands. And they'll either do it or they'll face the proper verdict in November. So now we need some good candidates to come forth. Not me. I'm way, you've seen how obnoxious I am in social media. You don't want that. Before we open the mic, I want to call out the three immediate things that you can do. You can help the girls with their First Amendment lawsuit. You can vote. And of course, we did put the email addresses of the Board of Trustees on that flyer as well. Write them, and then maybe Ellen will send you a love note about how much you're annoying her as a citizen. That's really something. Let's open the mic. Anybody in a chartreuse t-shirt has my deep admiration.
I'm Trustee Dane from Zone 1. I came here because I felt it was my duty to come and listen. It really is.
I'm sorry, I did not recognize you.
That's okay. I basically volunteered or ran for my seat on the zone because I had several community members that asked me to do it. I went into it with significant trepidation. I was not and still to this day, this is not my foray speaking in front of public. I really do honor what you have to say. I do listen to you. That's one of my biggest frustrations, is the few limited emails and communications I've had with the public. I bet I can count them on both hands. Please call me, talk to me, communicate with me, because I can't do. Yes, I can't go and individually meet with each and every single one of you. I would love to do it, but I'm more than welcome to hear what you have to say. And I've taken this meeting in, and there's been some things said about me. I don't have any ill intent on this. I have 2 kids in the school district. My wife pleads with me to stop, give it up. Why are you doing this? Why are you putting yourself through this? And there's many days that I ask myself the same things. I do honor all of the voters. I do honor all the taxpayers. I'm one myself. I own a home. I put on my hard hat in the morning. I come home, so I know what it costs to pay taxes here. It really troubles me, some of the things that we've spent money on in the past. I'm so new that I haven't been in a lot of these decisions that have been brought up here, but I am doing my due diligence. I do listen to the people, and I will take your input. I may have a different opinion than you on some things, but I am not the lapdog of the school board superintendent. I don't do her bidding. I have my opinion, and I gather information from you, and I need that information from you. So thank you for your time, and I'll let other people have the mic. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and thank you for coming. You got to get a better picture on the BCSD website. Yeah, he's a nice looking guy in the picture on the BCSD website. I didn't recognize it at all. So, all right, anyone else want to come up and, yep, come on up.
I just have a question, since there are 2 members of the board here. I have emailed repeatedly, and I never get responses. Do I know first when she decides to feed them to you, or do you know about this?
If I have a pertinent information that I can share, I will respond. But if it's something that I can't legally respond or disseminate information, then I don't. So that's my answer.
Yeah.
For me, it's like lost in space and
Woo! No more lost in space. Yep. Who's next? I'm sorry. Do you want to come up?
No, I have a really loud voice.
Yes, you do.
I'm actually a teacher. I teach kindergarten, and my question piggybacks off of her question in that I do have some fear as far as sending emails to the board. And I noticed that all of your email addresses are group blank schools. And so I know that we are told from the beginning that our emails they can be seen at any time. It's from our school district email address. I feel many teachers would feel a lot more confident and brave and whatever word you want to put if we had another way to get in touch with you. And I'm not asking for that now. I'm just transparency and all of that. There are a lot of teachers with a lot of fears and a lot of concerns, and we have children in our district, and we love our jobs. I love my job, and I think it would be easier to communicate that way.
Well, oh, I'm sorry. Hang on, right there first. Go ahead. Come on up. come on down. I'll turn that on and lay it on there. Yeah, that's what I would do.
Okay.
Just there you go.
Hi, my name is Penny Thayer, and I am the mother of one of the students that has filed the lawsuit. I did not anticipate coming up and speaking today, but I'm so grateful that you're all here. I'm just so glad that we had people with voices show up to support what is right. My daughter knows the difference between right and wrong, and she knows that something was wrong. So I hope that you will see that it's wrong and talk to your board members, even if it's hard to get an email through to them. Contact them, ask them to what's the right word? Ask them to tell the superintendent to stop wasting your money on legal fees and apologize and do the right thing from here on out. That's all I have to say.
Hi, I'm Troy Thayer. I'm Emily's dad. Super proud of her and her role in as a student board rep. Being the voice to the high school, to the school board. When she was redacted or censored, I was in disbelief, but I really didn't get fired up until about a week later when she and all the other board reps received an email from the district office saying that the responsibilities and the roles of the board reps was changing henceforth, and their role counter to policy. There is a policy about the responsibilities of the board rep. Counter to policy, now the role of the board student reps was to bring the good news of the schools they represent to the school board. My daughter Emily got really mad about this as well, and she wrote a email to all the school board members. Only one replied, and she said that she wasn't aware of this change in the roles, so therefore none of the other board members were aware of the new bring us only the good news. And at that point, that board member said that she would get back to her, and we never did hear any other response from that. So I don't see how anything can get better if the only free speech is good news. It's impossible. We need to improve our schools, and the only way we can do that is with free speech. So thank you for your time.
I'm not keeping track, so somebody help me, please. Ms. Schrader, go ahead.
So I just have a question directed to Trustee Bain, because I reached out to you about having a meeting with you, and you originally accepted and later declined. I would like to know who directed you to decline the meeting, and what were the instructions? And then I have another question for you.
Several questions. I was advised by the school district, I don't remember if it was Amanda or if it was Westfall, I was advised not to speak to you because it was an ongoing legal matter.
When the district result, like, they're not dealing with it anymore? And there's no way it could go back to the board?
That's what I was told. I was 2 weeks into this board position at that point in time. In my defense, that's what I was told.
Okay.
It was an ongoing legal matter, or we could brought it to a legal matter and not dispute.
But you're getting fed BS. You are allowed to speak to us. She's telling you that you're not. You are allowed to read whatever we give you. She can't pick and choose and tell you that everything's under legal. None of us are under legal until we're under legal. And I can't, Melanie's not under legal,
That comes to my next question. So my next question.
Better than any school board meeting I've ever had.
And this, both trustee Clayton and trustee Dane can answer this. Who teaches you and trains you on what is the ethical conduct of a trustee and what is legally okay to do and not okay to do?
Training I have is from the Idaho State School Board Association.
And they're the ones who instructed you that there are some emails you can't legally respond to?
Never told me that, no.
Then where did that come from?
I didn't say that I was not allowed to respond to emails.
I thought you said that there were some emails you can't legally respond to.
If there's some that's an ongoing or an ongoing grievance that is currently in the grievance process, I cannot respond or talk to that grievance. If it comes to the board as a grievance process, I have to recuse myself at that point because I've had independent.
Okay, so those are the only emails you cannot respond to. Okay.
Barb Browning's going to have apoplexy because I know she has some insight on the policy here, so.
I just want to tell you, that's part of the problem. When Carol started here in 2014 and almost immediately established herself an expert on Idaho state law. She is wrong on many issues. She bluffs. One instance, 2 trustees wanted to hold a town hall meeting, 2 out of 5. First, she stalled, wouldn't do it, wouldn't give me the room, wouldn't give me the equipment, we did it. I paid for it, videos that are on YouTube. She told them that it was illegal for 2 trustees to hold a town hall meeting together. That's totally false. She does that repeatedly, and she will have her flash repeat that. Don't believe it. Do your own research. Look at the state law, figure it out, and the School Board Association might as well be called Superintendent's Association. We pay almost $10,000 a year to belong to that, and it's garbage. Don't believe it.
That's Barbara Law right there. Yes, sir. Johnny G.
Okay, so just quickly, Rob and Ryan, thank you for coming. Johnny Delgado. I've been in command. I understand what command and control is. What you need to understand and what you need to basically engage with your other trustees is that you're in command. You are in command. You set the rules. You basically tell the superintendent what to do. And if she doesn't do what you tell her to do, then you tell her to pack her trash and get the hell off.
You know, it is, I don't know about school governance, but I know plenty about corporate governance, and CEOs work for boards of directors, okay? So it seems to me that it got reversed here somehow. Even the way she sits at those meetings, it's crazy. Like you cannot go to the GE annual report and see the CEO standing next to the board. It's not gonna happen, okay? So there are lines there that she has very much destroyed. I will say there was a comment made earlier by Chairman Clayton about apathy. Like there is a perception, you know, there's no apathy in this room, but there's a perception that there's apathy about things like the school district. And I will say that when school districts function well, that may be the normal state of things. But we haven't been apathetic for a long time. But I may have been at least, you know, I thank you for saying that I was the smart guy who talked about this. Don't confuse apathy with hopelessness. When people aren't acting, it's often out of hopelessness. It's often because they feel like they're not being heard or they have no way of being heard. And I think that we've seen today, and to kind of put a bow on this thing, We have been very deliberately manipulated into that position. Your voice has been taken away. And she did it in a very clever, systematic, pernicious way. And we're suffering from it. And when people can't speak, when their formal lines of communication are taken away from them, you get this, okay? And people asked me all week, is this I care? Is this put kids first? Is this, it's nothing. This is the people. This is just people super frustrated. You know, that I did my little part in social media to whip it up a little bit, fantastic. But you were there. The demand was there. All it had to do was be brought forth. So now the issue is, we can't quit. You got to bring it home. Vampires are hard to kill. Okay? All right. Somebody told me not to say things like vampires. Any other comment? Oh, I'm sorry. We got more. We got more. Back in the red. I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Mark Feenan, and I taught music for
I emailed my trustee, who is Ms. Green, and rather than replying to me, she sent my email, forwarded it to the superintendent, who then replied to me. And then when I get to school, I'm told by my principal not to email board members anymore. And I believe that was also stated in a staff meeting to all, because she said, when Carol likes me right now, I'd like to keep it that way. And then I watched the negotiations last spring, and she was on the panel. And I remember I was in person for a lot of it, but I watched a lot of it at home too. And I was watching from home, yelling at my computer, because she brought up that all the time teachers tell her that they're afraid of retribution, but they can't ever give her an example of what that is. And I was yelling at my computer, and I reached the rule of 90 last spring, and I could have easily continued, but I chose to retire. And I was like, throughout the year going, I'm so glad I retired when I did. And that's a really sad thing to say, because I had one of the best jobs in the Valley. So anyway, so I wrote my board member, and I reminded her what happened, and I said, that is retribution. You were an example of that. And I get the boilerplate, she replies back, doesn't reply back, but just something that says, according to ISBA rules, section something, this will be forwarded to other members of the board, and I'm not sure that ever happened. And I also said, you probably think I should have talked to my principal. Well, the principals are so afraid to do anything. Then maybe you should say, I should have spoken in front of the board. But that's kind of a one-way thing. And I said, like, a town meeting, because Mr. Clayton is the only one who's ever, on the board now, who's ever done a town hall meeting. Yeah, so that kind of thing goes on. It's like, why email your board member when they're not going to reply anything back? I don't even know if they get it.
Again, the frustration of being silenced, right? Okay, let's take one, maybe two more. We good? Who do we have? Oh, my eyesight is so bad. There you go. In the light blue, please. Excellent.
My question is, I've been here 29 years. I know a ton of teachers. I own a bookstore. I've known them forever. I have 4 kids in the Valley. I have watched my teacher friends and family get sadder and sadder and sadder for 4 years straight. So now we have this potential vote of no confidence. How do you ask a teacher to risk their name being provided? I mean, their vote, they need to be voting as much as us. Certainly there's more of us out there, but not everybody's going to get involved in this. So if we needed the teacher votes for this to make a difference, what do we tell them? I mean, what's the potential retribution if it only goes to the board? Or where does this survey or this.
What if they all sign it?
Right. That's true. But it's scary. You know, like Melanie, you're safe right now because you stood up on television and in this room, and there's no way I think the school board or she can touch you.
No.
Well, it would be pretty obvious. It would be pretty blatant. But every teacher feels that I've spoken to feels afraid for their job. So how do we get them to participate in something where they have to put their name on it? Or their name is provided to the board?
I just have to dovetail onto that because I would love to sign that petition for her removal, and my husband has begged me not to. And he is the pillar of our family. He loves it here. He works very, very, very hard for the school district. Their parents and students love him, and so you're going to lose a lot of votes of spouses of teachers. And so I want the school board members here right now, whatever the total is, in your mind, add one more person whose school district spouses asked them not to vote. So you need to add one more to the tally because I won't be able to vote. So I need to honor his fear.
Or
two more
here, has anything like this come before you before?
Like a vote of no confidence.
A vote of no confidence. Like how does that get handled?
Great question. Do Grant?
I mean, it really has no binding. It's a vote of no confidence on change.org. I mean,
You can sign it, anonymous teacher, afraid.
it does.
Anonymous spouse of teacher.
Well, okay, that you could do that on paper. I don't think the change.org site allows an anonymous signature. So, look, I mean, this is the culture of fear. And again, the only break to the culture of fear will be that the board has to show some fortitude. The board has to hear the people. The problem that we're at is Rob Clayton certainly seems like he could get interested. Ryan certainly seems like he could get interested. That's 2 of 5. And I would tell you, I know that 2 are firmly in her court. Okay? So the math isn't great. And it is scary to be a teacher to do this. And by the way, we can't just assume Melanie is safe. I think Melanie's going to face all kinds of repercussions, candidly. So
I was pulled aside 2 or 3 years ago and told by my administrator I needed to step up my game and make sure I'm totally protected with parent permission slips because we go out in the community and do service all the time. He didn't say I was a target, but he said everything he could to communicate. I had to watch myself completely, and I had to step up my game, making sure I followed every ethical rule, get parent permissions for everything, and just completely cover my back to be safe. And I don't feel safe still, but there's power in numbers. I don't think it can.
there is power. Oh, and yeah. Speaking of YouTube, we have a very nice video production company here, and this will be. So sorry about that. This will be edited, not edited, but it'll be reduced into a watchable format, and we'll get it out on YouTube. I'd anticipate 3 or 4 day turn on, 3-day turn. Look there you go. And by the way, Barb Browning paid for that. So we're gonna put it up against the Game of Thrones finale. No. Anyway, so we will do that. But it is, again, what we're hearing here is it's going to be important. This is the beginning of the end. This isn't the end. This meeting is not the end. This is the beginning of the end. Okay? Purple.
Very quickly, I think it's important that we get the teacher's voice on this, and it's important that they feel safe and that their families feel safe. Can the Teachers Association assist the teachers with this? Is that where you should go? If I was paying dues to a Teachers Association, I would go there.
Teachers are afraid to come tonight. I know a lot of people.
Yeah.
Friends and parents are afraid to come tonight.
Right.
Right.
Barb?
gathering teacher opinions. In December 2015, the board was talking about renewing Glenn Carroll's contract. That's when they did it the first time illegally. They had to void it. So part of that December meeting, Trustee Corker suggested they do a staff survey. It was sent out. It was anonymous. I mean, they could respond anonymously. So all the responses came to the board. They said they would release the results of that survey in January 2016. That January board meeting, suddenly, the board announced, oh, we're not going to tell you what it said. We're going to make it part of her confidential evaluation. The survey died, but the mechanism does exist. So the board wants to do it. If they really want to hear from teachers, they can do it. The teachers can respond anonymously. It might not be signing this no confidence petition, but it could be the same thing.
Which I would love to see the board do that. We'd love to see the board do that. Unfortunately, 2 to 3 probably doesn't get it done, but we got to think of some other ways to provide a voice to these teachers that's safer. All right, any other comment? Let's wrap it up. I agree. Guys, it's the beginning of the end. This is the start. Oh, one more. Sorry. One more.
If we get rid of the superintendent and the board of trustees doing its job finally, what are we going to do about the administrators that are more than happy to join in? I'm talking about the communication director that is not doing her job. So what do we do?
Well, so what you have to hope for, look, if the superintendent is removed, there would be a new superintendent would clean house. Like you would bring in a new communications director. That didn't happen last time, but I think whoever comes in is going to have a clear mandate to do that.
So basically we're still having the same person for administrators. So we're just changing superintendent and board of trustee, but the administrator are still the same. So how do we get rid of the problem?
So the issue is when a new superintendent comes in, a new board would make that hire. And part of the conditions of that hire would be, you got some bad apples in management, you got to get your bad apples out. That's the only way that happens.
That's true. The board does not have to renew contracts. So if the board that was on our side, they wouldn't have to renew the contracts of all of these people.
Well, that's true too. I mean, again, it all rolls, the board has the say. The board has the say if they act like they have the say. Barbara.
Communications director. That position was created in 2010 as a reward for Heather Crocker. Heather worked for the Education Foundation. She was extremely active in helping get the 2009 levy passed. She did a lot of stuff that a typical school district employee was not legally allowed to do. So, Lonnie Barber created the position of communications director. A different superintendent could eliminate.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for being here. It is heartwarming to see. Uno más. That's it. Uno más.
Hi. Okay. I'm not very loud, so please bear with me and I'll make it quick. Loud. The first sign of a tyrannical oppression anywhere is the limitation or restriction on our freedom of speech. And this is done by tyrants through fear. What I hear is that board trustees are afraid to communicate with each other. Teachers are afraid to communicate with each other. Everybody along this line of power that Glenn Carroll Holmes has set up, this triangle, this tyranny, everybody's afraid. And the thing is, what we need to do to combat this fear of silence is to join together and eradicate our own fears.
Yeah! I feel like this was a very black swan event, right? This is kind of the unexpected. They don't count on this. Let's make it count. Make it count in every way.